Dear friends, it's my honor and privilege to introduce the reflections and works of our Natural Sciences Further Advisory Council and to explain how its members are envisioning love in the light of recent discoveries. It is frequent to state that science, because it is a quest for objective knowledge, is far from values such as love and forgiveness. Of course, there are many exemplars of scientists who manifested love and forgiveness in their personal lives, or who considered love for the humankind, philanthropy, and the willingness to help people as main incentives for their scientific pursuit. But science, as such, was quite often considered as having nothing to say about love, and we were, at the beginning, as puzzled as our colleagues in the social sciences. So it is remarkable to learn that science, natural sciences, now bring evidence that supports the importance of the value of love in the prospect of our human destiny. More specifically, science drives us to acknowledge the need for love and the power of love. Of course, all the great traditions, philosophies, and religions of humankind also underscore the need for love and the power of love. But what is new is the fact that science reaches this conclusion from within science itself on its road to knowledge. Before sharing with you the results of these reflections, I need to briefly introduce the broad context in which science develops in the beginning of the 21st century. Let us start this story with a really big picture. Modern cosmology has unveiled the large expanses of time and space we live in. The observable universe is 14 billion years old, and it includes about 100 billion galaxies. Each of these galaxies, each of these dots on the image, has about 100 billion stars. Just contemplating these huge numbers is a very deep spiritual experience. At the end of the past century, in 1995, astrophysicists discovered the first exoplanets orbiting stars out of our solar system. In 2012, we learned that exoplanets are ubiquitous, that there are many exo-Earths, that is, rock planets similar to our planet Earth. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, harbors at least 100 billion planets. A large fraction of the stars have a planet in the habitable zone where temperature is neither too hot nor too cold, and where life may develop. But did life actually develop elsewhere? We are currently searching for elementary life forms on the planets of our solar system. You know that Curiosity is exploring the surface of Mars and analyzing rocks to find traces of microbes. We do not know yet whether life is present on some of the exoplanets, but observing programs will be achieved in the forthcoming decades to detect biosignatures, such as the molecules of oxygen and ozone, in the atmospheres of nearby exo-Earths. It must be realized that one single positive result for this search, even microbes, within the narrow range of our investigation, would statistically mean that life is absolutely everywhere in the universe. We may be living the day of this foundational discovery in the next future, in a few decades from now. The question naturally arises about the place of our Earth in this broad picture. In the first image of the whole Earth, taken en route to the moon by the astronauts of the Apollo missions, our mother planet seen from space appears so fragile and lonely. All life on it depends on a 10-kilometer thin layer of atmosphere and a 4-kilometer thin layer of water in the oceans that cover 3/4 of the surface. None of the political or ethnical boundaries we like so much is visible in this image, where Earth appears as a single unit, a single community. Since that time, we are realizing the words of British astronomer Fred Hoyle, who wrote in 1948, once a photograph of the Earth taken from the outside is available, once the sheer isolation of the Earth becomes plain, a new idea as powerful as any in history will be let loose. This powerful idea is the growing awareness of a common destiny in a global world. There is no doubt contemplating such a picture is a strong spiritual experience too. And maybe this other image of the Earth taken at a distance of 6 billion kilometers by the interplanetary probe Voyager 1 could help us get rid of our anthropocentric views and open our minds to cosmic issues. Yes, we are here on this small dot that you are seeing at a distance of 6 billion kilometers. What is the significance of such a tiny dust grain? One single planet among the 100 billion planets of our Milky Way, and among the 10,000 billion planets of the observable universe. What does the detection of a large number of planets that could potentially harbor life, which is now a scientific fact, mean for us? There are many paradoxical speculations in the scientific community on this issue. Is there an intelligent life somewhere else? If so, why don't we see signs of extraterrestrial intelligence in spite of our searches? Why don't we detect the radio waves produced by technological activity similar to those that Earth started emitting at an ever-rising intensity just 60 years ago, and that have already reached the closest 30,000 exoplanets in our neighborhood? Some even conclude, in the wake of remarks proposed by physicist Enrico Fermi a few decades ago, does a galaxy filled with habitable planets mean humanity is doomed? Why doomed? Because the silence of space may mean that intelligent life, which is likely to exist or to have existed somewhere in our Milky Way, may have been unable to sustain technological developments that become visible from other places in the galaxy. Is there a spiritual lesson in our loneliness? As a matter of fact, in the same time as we are seeing the fragility and isolation of Earth in space, and we are pondering about the probability of intelligent life to appear and have an enduring future, we may be discovering the limits of our own current technological, economical, and social development. My dear friends, the last news from our planets are quite worrying. Many scientists think we have left the geological era of the Holocene that started about 11,000 years ago after the last glacial period, and we have entered a new geological era, the Anthropocene, characterized by detectable traces of human activity everywhere in the world. But the impact now is so high that, according to Tom Murphy from the University of California at Long Beach, we are blowing through our inheritance. Our human activity has a strong impact on our planet, and the current way of implementing development is not sustainable anymore. Many changes are threatening us: the pollution of air and water around inhabited zones, resource exhaustion, including oil and metals, erosion of soils, loss of biodiversity, technological hazards. Global warming due to fossil fuel consumption will have strong consequences. It is so rapid that a lot of plants will not be able to migrate to keep pace with the changes. The sea level has already risen by several centimeters because of the continuous melting of ice on mountains. We will be seeing the summer disappearance of sea ice on the Arctic Sea in the forthcoming years. The next step will be a 7-meter sea level rise due to the melting of the ice cap on Greenland before the end of the century, not to speak of the melting of the ice cap on Antarctica, that would result in a 70-meter rise, in addition to producing dramatic consequences for hundreds of million people and huge economic problems, such a rise of warmer water will increase the power of storms and extreme climatic events. In a 2012 paper in Nature, one of the most famous science journals, an interdisciplinary team of 22 scientists predicts that we are, quote, approaching a state shift in Earth's biosphere, unquote. More than 40% of the land surface is already used to feed and accommodate a population of 7 billion human beings, and projections predict 9 billion in 2045, who will be eager to live and consume in, between quotes, the Western way of life. Such a pressure will alter Earth forever. Not only each of the above-mentioned threats, but also their complicated interplay through global forcings, feedbacks, nonlinear effects, the butterfly effect. All these things are going to change Earth much more rapidly than all the natural changes that happened in the past. We are not prepared to the dramatic alterations of our environment that will take place in the forthcoming decades. Some may continue denying these inconvenient truths. Some may find even new opportunities in an unexpected future. But we can be sure that the rapid alterations of our environment will inevitably trigger a global political and social crisis. At the end of their paper, in a way which is quite unusual in a scientific review, the authors issue a call for a radical change of our attitude toward resource consumption. They call for, quote, global cooperation to stem global-scale anthropogenic forcings, unquote. But they admit it will be a huge task. This warning echoes other calls from scientists, such as the one issued in February 2012 at the Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History, quote, humanity is embedded within nature, and we are at a critical moment in the continuity of time. Our collections are the direct scientific evidence for evolution and the ecological interdependence of all living things. The humanity species is actively altering the Earth's natural processes and reducing its biodiversity. As the sentient cause of these impacts, we have the urgent responsibility to give voice to the Earth's immense story and to secure its sustainable future. And here come the reflections the Natural Sciences Federal Advisory Council would like to share with you, dear friends. We do feel that the underlying motivation of these calls for global cooperation is love. There are several rational choices that could be taken to address the situation of turmoil and unrest produced by rapid environmental changes. Some may be frightening in the wake of the totalitarian experiences of the last century. The best choice comes from the spring of love. Love for our planet, love for our children, to whom we are going to donate a world that may be hardly habitable if we do not react with sufficient emergency. Love for the others, for the humankind with whom we shall have to take difficult decisions and share limited resources. Previously, the limitless exploitation of nature was considered as a duty and privilege of a human being. This idea, which is at the origins of technology as a mean to submit nature, has to be corrected. We now need technology to cooperate with nature. The threats on the planet jeopardize the humankind, and especially our children and grandchildren. Love for the humankind and the forthcoming human beings now requires love for the planet. Let us pay a tribute to Rachel Carson, one of the first environmental activists who published her visionary work, Silent Spring, exactly 50 years ago, and who wrote, the more clearly we can focus our attention on the wonders and realities of our universe about us, the less taste we shall have for destruction. Stewardship of the universe is a necessary step toward stewardship of the humankind. But will we be able to change our ideas, our views, our behaviors? Of course, there's a lot of evil in the human beings, including violence and greed. But there is also good. This ability to do good things is part of our human nature. A few years ago, paleoanthropologists discovered fossil skeletons of a man of Banissi in Georgia, a former republic of Soviet Union. These remains bear witness of several members of an early Homo erectus who was already present in Europe 1.77 million years ago. What struck and moved the scientists was the fact that one of the skulls was probably toothless, and was absolutely toothless, and that the man who owned it survived during several years because he was fed by others. This is the earliest evidence of a loving behavior among the Homo genus, soon after the transition between Australopithecus and Homo erectus. And we know more about love itself. We do not really know how altruism comes from, but we know that the biological prototype for love in mammals is the parent-child interaction. The biology of love is built upon the same biology that allows birth and breastfeeding. And we now have evidence of a substrate for love and empathy. It is oxytocin, an ancient neuropeptide molecule that is necessary for birth and breastfeeding. And it works not only in the mother-child relation, it also works in the father-child relation. It works in social bonding. Oxytocin increases positive social behaviors, reduces fear, and permits a sense of safety. Oxytocin can increase the capacity to trust others. Wound healing is faster in individuals with high level of endogenous oxytocin. We are beginning to understand the biological substrate of the positive aspects of love and empathy for physical and mental health. And what is extraordinary is that this aptitude can be transmitted. The more you love your child, the more he or she will be sensitive to oxytocin in the future. Love is epigenetic. This discovery is shedding new light on the history of humankind, where love and empathy may have been increased at each generation through the parent-child chain. I presume that none of the members of our Fetzer Advisory Council will actually claim that love is only the result of oxytocin, but love is also that. And the neurochemistry of oxytocin shows how old wisdom can be embodied into new knowledge. Dear friends, let me summarize the message I would like to convey. Our children will have to address big challenges due to dramatic changes in our environment. They will need love. They will need knowledge. We have to prepare them for living together in a world whose futures are unpredictable. And we now know how important the parent-child relation is for rooting love in the hearts of human beings. So there is hope. Of course, we are just discovering, again, values that have been known for centuries and even millennia by the great traditions and religions of humankind, the need and power of love. What is interesting is that this discovery humbly comes now from within the scientific pursuit. We are not willing to be passive scientists. We think our science must be action-oriented. This is the reason why we have recommended that the Fetzer Institute funds research programs to know more about the action of oxytocin and its benefits for physical and mental health, as well as, for instance, programs for educating teenagers to the knowledge of nature and for addressing resilience in front of natural catastrophes or attitudes in front of technological hazards. And we are also recommending the global initiative of a formative childhood peace consortium, a community of academic, philanthropic, and international development agency partners to promote love, peace, and forgiveness through early child development, hopefully under the aegis of the United Nations. Dear friends, fostering the awareness of love and forgiveness in the emerging global community now is on the agenda of a growing number of natural scientists. What we have to reach is St. Francis' sense of awe in front of nature, respect for nature, and communion with nature that was so nicely exemplified in his Canticle of Creation. And I personally come from a tradition, Islam, in which the human being, as God's vice-regent on earth, must act as a good gardener in the garden of creation by using its fruits without misusing. We must consider long time spans instead of looking for immediate return on our investments. Dear friends, let me conclude by quoting this Eastern story of a king that passes through fields and sees an old man planting a fruit tree. The king asks this old man why he is doing so, because he will not benefit from the fruits. And the old man answers, I am not planting the tree for myself, I am planting the tree for the generations to come. I want to give a long-lasting gift to the people who will come after me. Let us hope that the humankind will hear this call and take the decisions that are urgently needed to prepare a future for our children. Dear friends, let me express my deep gratitude to you all. Peace be upon you.